Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, Stephen Young of Rotogrinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're previewing the Toyota Save Mart 350 at Sonoma Raceway here on Running Hot. Last weekend on the streets of Chicago, no surprise, Shane Van Gisbergen taking home the win for his second win of the season, his second Chicago win. He came in ahead of the Toyota duo of Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick. And honestly, shout outs to Denny Hamlin, another Toyota, coming home in fourth after starting dead last, not even getting to turn a lap in practice or qualifying. There was the threat of some rain, but no rain ended up materializing during the race. So we had a straight up race, and SVG beat everybody once again, Stevie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, for road course racing, I thought it was awesome. We saw passing. We saw tires matter. Like, you give Tyler Reddick 2 more laps, I think he beats both Gibbs and SVG. Even though, SVG was, the class of the field, Tyler Reddick having those, fresher tires, probably 2 more laps, I think would have been the number. Because I think Ty Gibbs would have let Reddick go if it wasn't the last lap. If there was 2 laps to go, I think he would have recognized, hey, it's Toyota, I'm going to let him go. So, but I thought the racing was good. I thought Michael McDowell was the biggest surprise. I knew it would be fast, but Michael McDowell was pulling away from SVG in the first stage before he had all of the issues internally, which was, man, I was rooting for. I like McDowell, and I'm rooting for SVG. Don't get me wrong. I think SVG is awesome for the sport, but overall, road course, street course, however you want to look at it, I thought it was one of the better ones we've had. And SVG won, and he dominated, but there was 3 or 4 drivers that could have potentially won had a couple things happen. So I thought the racing was good.
Yeah, had maybe NASCAR thrown the caution quick enough on the Cody Ware incident, we would have had a green-white checkered, and Tyler Reddick's fresh tires really could have done some damage there as well. So, like you said, a couple different ways this race could have gone if McDowell doesn't have the issues. Would have been interesting to see how he ended up faring. But anyway, we have SVG now with 2 wins, giving him the 4th most playoff points so far this season among all the drivers that have qualified for the playoffs. So that'll be interesting to see what he can do in the playoffs as well. But this week we are headed to another road course. This time, instead of the streets of Chicago, we're going to the natural terrain road course at Sonoma Raceway. Sonoma, one of the 2 classic road courses in NASCAR that's been around for a long, long time, the other being Watkins Glen. So we have tons of track history here, tons of history to talk about racing at Sonoma, about how the stages impact things since we've been stage racing since around 2016, 2017 at this track. So Stevie, talk about racing at Sonoma.
Yeah, I think that, everybody's going to come in this weekend talking SVG. Can he, make it 3 in a row on the road, with the Mexico and the Chicago win? And I think it's fair. I think he is the most talented road course racer that we have in the NASCAR Cup Series right now. But Sonoma's different. And Sonoma's different because, like you mentioned, Sonoma and Watkins Glen, these guys have been racing on these tracks a long time. COTA, SVG was up there at COTA, but he didn't dominate. And we go to Mexico where nobody's been. Huge advantage to the guy like SVG. And then we go to Chicago, and we've been there 3 times, and he's raced all 3 races, and he's been the fastest car there every time that we've gone there. So now we're going to Sonoma, freshly repaved Sonoma. He did not race here last year in the Cup Series, which I think is kind of a disadvantage to him more than anything else because the next-gen car and, on this road course. So I expect him to be fast, but racing at Sonoma is different. Repave, it's fast. You look at last year where we had the repave. Look, if you look at the fastest cars, it was Kyle Larson, it was Chase Elliott, it was Mike McDowell, Tyler Reddick, Blaney. Joey Logano was fast until they pitted and they got caught up in a mess. So it's fast race cars compared to fast road course racers. So I think that is the biggest difference between Sonoma, Watkins Glen compared to even COTA, Mexico, and Chicago.
Yeah, the one thing that SVG does have going for him, of course, he did race the Xfinity race here last year, winning that one as well, doing one of the classic burnouts that we've ever seen in any form of NASCAR racing. He had that like drifting burnout there at Sonoma. That was pretty cool. But I agree with you. I think this is much more of a level playing field because these guys have been racing at Sonoma year in and year out, and we see some of these same drivers rise to the top, whether it's your Kyle Bushes, your Kyle Larsons, your Chase Elliott's, Chris Bushers, Michael McDowell's. These guys, year after year, especially in the next gen car, have been performing extremely well here at Sonoma. So definitely a more level playing field, I would say, than was the case at Mexico City or even Chicago Street Course, where, just the fact that it is a street course and there's walls there and it's really tight racing, you got to be super precise, also gives SVG an advantage. But at the same time, SVG is rightly the favorite. He should be the favorite, but his betting odds are quite short. They're in the plus 150 range ish, a little bit give or take there. Plus 150 is probably the tops that you will see, more like plus 125, plus 130, plus 140. So that should open up plenty of value because a lot of that is translating to the top 3, top 5, top 10 market, where he's taking a large chunk of the value out of there as well. So I do think we're going to find some betting value this weekend, Stevie. But how else are we handicapping Sonoma?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the road courses, the data, obviously. I'll even throw in Chicago, Mexico into that data. But I mean, realistically, I am looking more at Coda, Sonoma, Watkins Glen type of race road courses. I kind of put the Roval in my data, but I really kind of picture the Roval more of like its own separate thing now that we don't go to like the Indy road course where it's like half road course, half intermediate type of track. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Sonoma data, obviously with the next gen car, really kind of weighing last year a little bit heavier because of the repave, and just kind of looking at that the most.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the repave, excuse me, is pretty important there because this used to be a really high tire wear track, and now with the repave, it's gonna have a less tire wear than we used to in the past. And we did see that a little bit last year, although NASCAR and Goodyear did try to bring a tire that would wear last year, and it did a little bit, but certainly different than in years past. Let's move over to the NASCAR in season challenge, Stevie. We are down to the quarterfinals, the round of 8. And the matchups we have are Alex Bowman versus Ty Dillon. Shout outs to Ty Dillon for making the top 8. We have the Legacy Motor Club head to head of Eric Jones versus John Hunter Nemechek. We have Tyler Reddick versus Ryan Preece. And we have Ty Gibbs versus Zane Smith. So, Stevie, thoughts on these matchups and on the tournament as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I feel like on the right side of the bracket, if you're looking at the bracket, you got Priest and Reddick. Like Reddick should win that one, but Priest has been surprisingly really solid on road courses this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Ty Gibbs against Zane Smith, and Zane's been good on road courses, but realistically, like if SVG wasn't running in the Cup Series, like Ty Gibbs might have a couple wins already on road courses. So I think both of those are kind of straightforward. I think the Ty Dillon Alex Bowman matchup is straightforward. If Bowman doesn't have any issues, I think he beats Ty Dillon here. The really interesting one is Jones and Nemechek because I mean it's realistically a coin flip. If you're Jimmy Johnson and your legacy, you're probably rooting pretty heavily here for Eric Jones going into Dover next week. Steep concrete track. That's kind of we talk about Eric Jones all the time at Bristol. So I think it's interesting, but I think the three of them are pretty straightforward, and I think the legacy matchup is a real straight up coin flip because neither one of them are like awesome road course racers.
If you're Jimmy Johnson, you're rooting for Ty Dillon, right?
Yeah. Hey, you're not wrong about that. Yeah, for sure.
But one thing I will say is Sonoma has not been Alex Bowman's best road course. I believe he has finishes of 15th and 15th each of the last 2 years. And Ty Dillon's last 2 trips here, he's finished 23rd and 23rd. So maybe a little closer than we think. So, there's a chance for an upset there on Ty Dillon versus Alex Bowman, but rightly so, Alex Bowman is the heavy favorite. Completely agree with you on the rest of the analysis, which means if things go as planned, it would be Alex Bowman versus a Legacy Motor Club car at Dover. And then on the right side of the bracket, as you mentioned, it would be Tyler Reddick versus Ty Gibbs at Dover. I think you got to give the nod to Reddick there. And so we're most likely looking at a Bowman versus Reddick finals. But if it's not that, what do you think it would be?
I mean, first off, I want to give you a shout out because last week I think you nailed the matchup with Busher and Smith, and it's something you and I talked a lot about. So I want to give you a shout out because you nailed that one. I don't think any of us had John Hunter beating Elliott last week. So
Oh.
that was a shocker. But yeah, I mean, I think realistically, it's probably Bowman versus Reddick. Like you mentioned, if it's not, I mean, I could see Gibbs beating Tyler Reddick. So go Gibbs. I don't see Bowman losing either one of these next two matchups. But if I had to like play, curveball, I would say Eric Jones, Ty Gibbs would be fun with the background of like Eric Jones and the Ty Gibbs camp. Would be a fun like matchup for this in-season challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I think I agree with you. Although, John Hunter being favored here, if he wins, then to me it's just straight up Alex Bowman, unless there's a Ty Dillon upset somehow. But I agree with you. I think Ty Gibbs versus Eric Jones would be my backup picks if it's not Reddick and Bowman coming from the in-season challenge. But let's get to the bets for Sonoma. As always, we're going to drive through the race stage by stage with our shorter odds pick in stage 1. Then stage 2, we'll give our longer odds bet. Finally, we'll drive through stage 3, end up in victory lane with our combined victory lane favorite bet. So let's throw the green flag on the Toyota Save Mart 350 and fire off for stage 1. All right, first bet here, Stevie, in stage 1, you're going to a top 10 bet on a road course driver.
Yeah, and that's AJ Allmendinger, top 10 plus 100. I look, there's a couple places that have this. I do live in Florida, so like I mean, basically only bet on Hard Rock, and this is a really, really good odds bet for me when I'm looking at like where AJ ranks in speed. He's 6th this season on road courses. When we look at just Sonoma since the beginning of the next gen car, the 3 races, he ranks inside the top 10 in speed, and he was awful here the first year of the next gen car. We look at this season and last season, and AJ ran all but I think Watkins Glen last year, and he ranks inside the top 5 in speed. So it's a road course where he has a lot of experience, and I'm not asking AJ to win this race, but where he's at in points, he's not going to points race. They showed us that last week at Chicago. They're going to put him on optimal strategies to try to get a win. That's what he needs to get in. I mean, if you're going to bet him to win, I think you do it before practice and qualifying, but I'm going to go on the safe side here and just take his top 10 at basically even money here at plus 100.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. I think AJ Allmendinger, while Sonoma throughout his career hasn't been his best road course, it's been a lot better for him in the next gen era. So, he's going to be on the optimal strategy trying to win this race. And I think that's a huge advantage here. So, AJ Allmendinger is Stevie's turn 1 pick, top 10 finish at even money. Stage 1 pick, I should say. For my stage 1 pick, I'm going to go to this in-season challenge, Stevie, and I'm going to take 2 of these matchups here. I'm going to take Ty Gibbs at minus 300 over Zane Smith, and I'm going to parlay that with Tyler Reddick at minus 220 over Ryan Preece, which that parlay comes out to minus 107 odds at BetMGM. So this is a parlay at minus 107. And I actually have value on Ty Gibbs at minus 300, but it doesn't feel good laying minus 300, right? I have this closer to minus 350, but it doesn't feel good laying minus 300. So I'm going to parlay that to get this a little bit shorter odds. And while I don't have value on Reddick at minus 220, I have this at about minus 210 as fair on Tyler Reddick. That doesn't really account for the strategy here. You can't really model the strategy. So once we throw in strategy, I think this favors Reddick more to like minus 250. So now we're getting 2 values at pretty big minus numbers. So I like to parlay them together to get 1 bet here at minus 107. And the reason I think the strategy favors Tyler Reddick over Ryan Preece is Tyler Reddick has the win, right? So he doesn't have the points race. I should say Tyler Reddick doesn't have the win, but he also doesn't necessarily have to points race. Ryan Preece absolutely has to points race here. Ryan Preece is 2 points outside the cut line. If we don't get a new winner and he's able to beat Bubba Wallace in points, he is in the playoffs. So I think this is a spot where the strategy, Tyler Reddick has the higher option, more of an option to flip the stages, especially flipping stage 2, which we've seen has been the most optimal thing to do over the last 3 or 4 Sonoma races. Whereas Preece is going to be probably staying out, trying to grab those stage points. And with, like you said, he's been surprisingly good at the road courses. With that, he could get a large chunk of stage points if that happens. So I think this is a spot where Preece probably has to stay out in stage 2 rather than flipping the stage, which should give the advantage to Tyler Reddick here. So while I have it minus 210, when we don't factor in strategy, I think this is probably more like minus 250 when we do factor in strategy. We talked about Ty Gibbs. He probably would have some wins without SVG here. And Ty Gibbs definitely going to be on the optimal strategy without a win and on the outside of the playoff picture. So this is just a straight up value here on Ty Gibbs. So parlaying Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs to get minus 107. What do you think of those?
I was jealous when I saw this because I can't do this. So I was a little jealous. I like this a lot. Obviously, I think that you're playing the 2 better road course racers. You're playing the 2 that, like Ryan Preece, like you mentioned, after last week, because of the Bowman Bubba Wallace thing that happened at the end of that race, like Ryan Preece is 2 points behind Bubba Wallace. And they have already showed us at Mexico and Chicago that, like, if they have a chance to get stage points, they're going to get stage points. And I mean, if you think back to last year, Tyler Reddick was on the optimal strategy and him and Larson came out of the pits like right on top of each other, and Tyler Reddick drove it in the corner and like flat spotted his tires, and like that messed up the rest of the race for him. But had he not done that and he just kind of followed Larson, him and Larson would have been battling for that win there at the end of that race. So I think that Tyler Reddick is very good on the road courses. Ty Gibbs is very good on the road courses. Not saying that Zane and Preece are not. I just think you're playing the 2 drivers that definitely have the higher upside here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing, that I mentioned about Tyler Reddick, he doesn't have a win, but he has 584 points, and Ryan Preece has 441 points, and he's the guy on the outside looking in. So Tyler Reddick is 143 points to the good right now. It would take 4 new winners in the final 7 races of the regular season to knock out Tyler Reddick pretty much. And I don't see that happening at all, because even if we get 3 new winners, that would put it Tyler Reddick versus, the current cut line of bumping out the next 3 would be Alex Bowman, right? Bubba Wallace would drop out, and then Chris Buescher would drop out, and then Alex Bowman would drop out. Tyler Reddick still has a 104-point advantage on Alex Bowman to drop below him to be the one if we get 3 new winners. So he seems very, very safe on points. So I actually think this is a spot where 2311 can attack and put Tyler Reddick on the optimal strategy. Preece absolutely has to be thinking points right now, especially with Shane Van Gisbergen taking that win at Chicago. That removed another race where we could potentially get a new winner, and him being the heavy favorite here. This is a good spot for Ryan Preece to points race, I think. So stage 1, Stevie, AJ Allmendinger, top 10 finish at even money. My pick is Ty Gibbs and Tyler Reddick to win their in-season tournament challenge matchups. Parlay them together at BetMGM for minus 107. So that is stage 1. We're going to pit, get some tires and some fuel, and fire off for stage 2. And in stage 2, Stevie, you're moving up from the top 10 to the top 5 here. What's your top 5 bet?
Yeah, I'm going to Michael McDowell for a top 5 at plus 180. I wanted to find a way to bet McDowell this week. Couldn't bet the Chevy market. I messaged you earlier and I was like, man, we can't do that. I mean, Chevy to win this race is like minus 320 or something like that. Something crazy. Like realistically, you probably put a half a unit on Ford and Toyota, and just hope that like Chevy doesn't win with that type of odds. But that's getting away from myself here. I wanted to bet McDowell. McDowell is really good at Sonoma. He ranks first in speed here with the next gen car. He has an average finish of 4th. This is a guy that realistically probably should have won a couple of these races already. And it's just really good here. And, we talk about this race and Watkins Glen being 2 of the older road courses. And like, he definitely showed us last week at Chicago that they have the speed. If he doesn't have that issue, he's fighting for a win there. They are definitely in the strategy of we need to win a race because of where he's at. But when you're looking below the cut line, I feel like, obviously you can always put Kyle Busch in that like conversation of like winning. AJ has a couple more chances here on road courses and speedway type races, but Ty Gibbs and Michael McDowell are the ones that you're like, and Brad Keselowski. Those are the three that you're like circling, like, hey, they have speed. They can win these races. Hochevar. So I'm going to top 5 here. I wouldn't hate the idea of betting him to win. It's just I'm going to kind of wait to see like what value potentially opens up after practice and qualifying with winning the race
Yeah.
bets. But I'm going to go to McDowell here for a top 5 at plus 180.
Yeah, the one thing I will say though is if SVG doesn't get the pole, then the value's probably gone. I almost like betting the outrights earlier in the week just because of that. But totally agree with you on the top 5. I think McDowell, Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger, these are the guys that are road course racers that also we know are going to be on the optimal strategy, and these are the guys you want to target for some upside. So Stevie going with Michael McDowell for a top 5 finish at plus 180 definitely has been one of the best drivers at Sonoma in the next gen era. For me, for my stage 2 pick, I got a little fun one here, Stevie. I'm going to go with the winner of stage 1 wins the race, yes. And you can get that plus 275 at Caesars. You can get that plus 270 at Bet365. And the reason I'm doing this is we always think you got to flip the stages at Sonoma, but you actually don't have to for stage 1. And what we've seen, because stage 1 is just 25 laps and stage 2 is just 30 laps, you can just go to the end of your fuel window and pit before the end of stage 2. So you're flipping stage 2. And what that means is the stage 1, these drivers are not flipping it. And it turns out in 2 of the last 4 years, the winner of stage 1 has won the race. Additionally, 3 of the last 4 years, the winner of the race did not flip stage 1. So last year, Kyle Larson won the race, but he finished 3rd in stage 1, did not flip the stage. The only year that the winner of stage 1 flipped, or the winner of the race flipped stage 1 over the last 4 was Daniel Suarez in 2022, but that's the exception. Now, we also add in Shane Van Gisbergen into the mix. If he qualifies on pole and he wins stage 1, he's going to be, pretty heavily favored to win stage 1 and win the race. And that's almost a way to get SVG at plus 270 or plus 275. It's not technically a way, but kind of if we think he's going to get the pole. And if he does, now all of a sudden it feels like a way to get SVG at plus 275 or plus 270. So, this has happened 50% of the last 4 races. If that were to be the long-term trend, it would be an even money bet, but we're getting it at plus 270. And like I said, 3 out of the last 4 years, the winner of the race did not flip stage 1. So first, and third for stage 1 as the winner in 3 of the last 4 years. So I think we got to back the strategy here, Stevie, and go with this one.
Goes back to the conversation we were having about Tyler Reddick. Like, he won the stage 1 last year. If he doesn't flat spot the tires, does he win the race last year? Yep. Like, it was him and Larson were both really fast, but I mean, I kind of give a slight like bump to Reddick over Larson in that battle. So I don't hate this. Like, I think realistically, if you're betting this bet and kind of going inside your mind, you're like, SVG wins stage 1. He qualifies first, second, or third. He wins stage 1. And now I'm getting a guy who last week they already said if they have an opportunity to win a stage, they'll take the playoff point. So you can run, like you said, you can run a little bit deeper into stage 2, and it puts him back in the strategy of, 2 pit stops. I think everybody wants 2 pit stops at Sonoma. So I think like if you're betting this, you're like, all right, I'm not going to bet SVG at minus money. I'm going to bet this and hope that he wins stage 1. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to pit in stage 3 anyway, so you may as well come in when you get to the end of your pit window at stage 2, and then pit after, stage 3 has started anyway. So, I think it's really interesting, and I think this is a good spot to attack here. So stage 2, Stevie going with Michael McDowell for a top 5 finish at plus 180. And for me, I'm going winner of stage 1 wins the race at plus 275 or plus 270, depending on what you have available to you. So we are going to drive through stage 3, take the checkered flag, and of course drive into our victory lane with our combined favorite bet. Stevie, I originally had this as my turn 2 pick, so I love it. What do we got for victory lane?
Well, victory lane was so victorious for us last week. We had Ty Gibbs for a top 5. we're not going to go to a race winner. We're going to go back to the top 5 market, and we're going to go Chase Elliott at plus 250. I hope he wins, because one of my season-long bets was over 1.5 wins, and we got one of those. I need to get a second one. Chase is really good at this racetrack. He was one of the fastest cars here last year with the repave. Kind of got stuck in some traffic, but realistically, if we're looking at just raw speed, he had a really good opportunity to win that race. We're not betting him to win. We need him to finish inside the top 5. You look at the 3 races with the next gen era, he has a 5.7 average finish with 2 top 5 finishes. Like I said, he ranks 3rd in speed behind Buescher and McDowell. You give where they're at, the momentum that they have going right now, the speed that they have on road courses this season. Now we're shifting gears to this season, and we're looking at it and all right, he kind of struggled at Chicago, but he was fast. He just had some issues. So I like where Chase Elliott's at just as a whole right now, and the top 5 market seems the best way to bet him early in the week here.
Yep, I agree with you. I think the top 5 market is exactly the way to go on Chase Elliott. And if we look since 2018, there have been 6 Sonoma races that Chase Elliott has raced in. Of course, 2020, there was no Sonoma race because of the pandemic. But Chase Elliott has finished inside the top 5 in 4 of those 6 races. And in the other 2, he had a top 5 car. If we go back to 2022, the year Daniel Suarez won, Hendrick Motorsports just kind of botched the strategy with Larson and Elliott, but they were clearly 1 and 2 in terms of speed. They got themselves really bad track position and just couldn't make their way forward. Chase Elliott still finished 8th in that race, but definitely had one of the best cars. And then in 2019, he finished 37th, but he was on the same strategy as eventual race winner Martin Truex Jr. and finished 1 spot behind Truex in that strategy until Chase Elliott's engine expired. So again, probably a second or so place performance there from Elliott, but his engine let go. So arguably a top 5 car in all 6 Sonoma races going back to 2018. I think he can do it again. He's got that win in the bag, so we know he can stay out for stage 1, flip the second stage, and be on that optimal strategy. Staying out for that stage 1 will be nice to get those stage points for the the regular season standings. So I think he is going to be on that optimal strategy there as well. So I love Chase Elliott for a top 5 finish, plus 250 over at Bet365. Make sure to shop this around. That is the best line that I've seen available. And that is going to do it for us. So thank you for listening to the Toyota Save Mart 350 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's Motorsports Betting Podcast. If you'd like to tail some of the bets we discussed today, look for the quick slip links in the podcast and video descriptions, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. We'll be back next week to talk bets for the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400 at Dover Motor Speedway, which of course is also the semifinal round of the NASCAR In-Season Challenge. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.